I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. I'm continuing my analysis into human rights, and specifically today I'm going to conclude the section on human rights and its relationship with torture. I'm going to give a few examples with respect to the ongoing discussion that we had, and then we'll move on to other concepts in human rights. So this section will conclude the section on human rights and torture, and then we'll progress. Specifically, it's section 5.2 in my notes. Again, if you want to get access to the notes, just click the banner ad that will pop up. It'll take you to the PDF, download it. You can write in your notes and follow along with the video. Click the link in the description field. The book that I'm using is Human Rights in the World Community. It's an incredible resource. This is the only book that I'm using to both compile the notes for my lecture and to actually serve as a primary source of information for the lecture. With that being said, let's begin with section 5.2 of human rights. This is 5.2. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Landau Commission report and the significance that the report had to our understanding, at least our contemporary understanding of torture. I'm not going to get into too much of the detail. I'll allow you guys to, we're all tech savvy, Google the Landau report, and you can get more information if you want, but I'm going to give you the gist of what's at stake here in the analysis. So let's begin there, right? And this is So the Landau Commission report, the UN Committee Against Torture and the Landau Commission. Now here's a quote, and I actually take it directly from the text. The quote says, quote, in 1987, for reasons unconnected with the interrogation of Palestinians in the Israeli government, established an official commission of inquiry to investigate the general security services. So the GSS, intelligence branch, wanted to investigate how it was conducting its interrogations with respect to Palestinian detainees. The report produced by the Landau Commission was path-breaking in a number of ways. It confirmed the Landau Commission report that, in fact, GSS agents had used violent interrogation methods routinely on Palestinian detainees. So the first thing that we see in this Landau Commission report, and right now it's just sort of, I usually ever do historical information, but this historical information will be integrated into a larger conceptual discussion of torture in a few moments, right? So the first thing that we recognize, the report produced by the Landau Commission was path-breaking in a number of ways. It confirmed that, in fact, GSS agents had used violent interrogation methods routinely on Palestinian detainees, right? So, USED on Palestinian detainees. Okay. Alright, so violent interrogation methods had been used, right, on Palestinian detainees first, since at least 1971, and that they had routinely lied about such practices when confessions were challenged in court, right? So we know that denial of interrogation tactics, INT. Right? Denial when confronted in court. Grounds that they had been coerced. The Landau Commission was harsh in its criticism of GSS perjury. Here's the key part though. But adopted the GSS's own position that coercive interrogation tactics were necessary in the struggle against hostile terrorist activity. Right? The conclusion ended up being, surprisingly enough, that the enhanced interrogation, which they called coercive interrogation. Coercive interrogation had been adopted, right? Adopted GSS's own position that coercive interrogation tactics, and I'm reading from the middle of page 13, section 5.2, had been adopted, right? The Landau Commission accepted the broad definition of terrorism utilized by the GSS, which encompassed not only acts or threats of violence, but virtually all activities related to Palestinian nationalism, right? So without getting into the broader historical context, which I'm sure all of us are familiar with, between Palestinians and Israelis, between Palestinian nationalism and the Israeli government as such, what we recognize, some of, not all of the Landau Commission report, recognize that no, there was in fact violent interrogation used on Palestinian detainees, right? So this has been verified, right? On top of that, there was a denial, as we know, of these tactics, and the tactics were, we should know the form of denial that this is, right? So I'll just pause for a second and have you jog your memory if you're following along in the series. We know there are three forms of denial, and the question is, well, what form of denial is this? Well, it's not the first form of denial, it's not a direct denial, and it's not the last form of denial, it's not an implicatory denial. This is an interpretive denial, right? Interpretive, T-I-E. An interpretive denial, right? This is an interpretive denial. What thing we see in first bullet point on underneath the block quote, national security requires the use of enhanced interrogation or coercive interrogation, right? So what we see is that it's a direct threat. There's a direct threat from nationalism. There's a direct threat of nationalism from Palestinians, allegedly Palestinian nationalists. Now, that threat is never articulated. What's recognized is that the use of coercive interrogation, aka torture, is being used in terms of national security, right? So, since there's a nationalist threat, arguably, the question or the point was that that nationalist threat is met with coercive interrogation. Now, this is the point that I want to build on, that I thought was very, very interesting in the Landau Commission report, right? The following, it's very simple to understand. And now I'm gonna sort of extrapolate, right? I'm gonna sort of not necessarily look specifically at the findings in the Landau Commission report, but look more generally at the structure, the archetypes of nationalist threats and coercive interrogation, which we know is torture, right? AKA, let's just call it what it is. Okay, so nationalist threats from Palestinians, as an example in the Landau Commission report, coercive interrogation practices, as discussed by the GSS's own admission or eventual finding. What we've recognized is that the point that coercive interrogation is used, the attempt is to justify national security. So that this is justified by an appeal to national security. Right? This is justified by an appeal to national security. Well, if it's justified by an appeal to national security, and we're talking about the torture of Palestinian detainees, and now I want to get more general, just the torture of a detainee in any country, respectively, in general, as long as that detainee is kept perpetually in the custodianship of the powers